Hobbs Shaw is a spin-off of the Fast and Furious franchise starring Dwayne Johnson and Jason Statham as their respective characters, and also comes from the director of both Atomic Blonde and Deadpool 2, David Leitch. He also worked on the original John Wick film alongside director Chad Stahelski. And since this is a first for the franchise, being a spin-off and not necessarily a sequel to the main installments of the series, we follow Hobbs and Shaw as they are pulled into an international plot in which they basically have to stop a group of cybernetically enhanced super soldiers led by Idris Elba's character, who are trying to take a very deadly virus and spread it to the whole entire world. I know what I just described to you is a very generic action movie plotline, but that's basically what this movie is. It's your basic level action movie with the same exact tired tropes that you've seen a million times before, just with Dwayne Johnson and Jason Statham paired up against each other and throwing insults at one another, and I guess Vanessa Kirby's there to look cute on camera as well. Now I must say that I'm enough of a fan, I guess, of these movies to have been at least interested in seeing this. I don't care for the first 4 movies. I like Fast 5, I enjoyed Fast and Furious 6, I liked Furious 7, it's probably my favorite of the franchise. But then The Fate of the Furious happened, and I just don't really like the direction that took after Paul Walker unfortunately passed away, and they had to write off his character and start with something new. It wasn't just the story that let me down with that one, though. It was both the fact that it was trying to build too much of the world too fast, I think, and the film felt a lot less practical and genuine, and also just tangible compared to the other movies. What made 5, 6, and 7 stand out so well is despite the use of CGI in those films, the filmmakers were able to craft action sequences that felt real, that felt tangible, and you can actually somewhat believe what you're seeing on screen, even though most of it is frankly ridiculous. They were the epitome of dumb fun, and clearly they found a successful formula in which they could try to build off this franchise from there, because once Fast 5 hit theaters, this franchise started to get actually good reviews, and then box office receipts started to get a lot higher, with Furious 7 definitely breaking the mold in that regard, and the same with The Fate of the Furious as well. Because of the unprecedented success of these movies, it was inevitable that they would try to do more things in order to milk this franchise dry as fast as they could, and Hobbs & Shaw is definitely an example of that, because this is in every way you can imagine a throwaway movie that you probably won't remember within a day or so, but the experience I found to be pretty inoffensive overall. I know some people can't buy into the ridiculous stupidity of this movie, and I certainly couldn't, but I completely understand those who look at this film and its generic qualities and just the insanity of it all and didn't really buy into any of it. If those were their issues, I would completely empathize with that, and they are issues I share along with them. You know, this movie is just ridiculous in every single way you can imagine, both with its character interactions, the plot armor. It doesn't ever really seem like people get harmed despite the insane things that they do. And there's just a lot of ridiculousness that goes on with these action sequences, the plot points, just everything really. Hobbs & Shaw is a very dumb movie, and it was engineered for people who just want to turn off their brains and forget everything and just let their minds melt as they watch a lot of cool action. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I mean, if a movie's done well with that type of mindset, then sure, you're gonna have a lot of fun. But I think this film is definitely pandering in that sense. I'm calling this an exercise in pretentious stupidity because at this point, with the fact that this series has gotten so successful within the past decade or so, I think the producers are starting to get way over their heads with how much they can get away with this franchise. Whether or not that might be with the loud, insane action sequences, or the characters doing insane stunts, or just the dumb cameos, man. I'm not even gonna mention who shows up at this point because you probably already heard, but this film is so confident in people accepting everything that they watch on screen and buying into the joke of it all, that they insert actors who are definitely known for their comedic talent and their reputation in Hollywood for that matter. They insert these actors in such a way that it feels so forced, and the jokes are dragged on for so long that I hated every second that those actors were on screen. There were 2 in particular, and that sort of self-righteous, pretentious mindset in making this movie sort of carried into other aspects as well. I think particularly with Dwayne Johnson. Dwayne Johnson, in my opinion, is an entertaining enough personality on screen if he's used well, but I think this film is a classic example of people playing into Dwayne Johnson's persona too much. It is kind of ridiculous how much they play off Dwayne Johnson's persona as this amazing guy that American kids should look up to as their role model. Look how attractive he is. Look at how nice he is to kids. Look at just the amazing example he sets for everybody. He's amazing. It kind of rubbed me off the wrong way how much this film plays into that, instead of really giving him a character to play. Whatever sort of character development he had in the previous movies, if any, it's so apparent that they were just trying to play up the fact that it's Dwayne Johnson in an action movie, and he's going to carry this because he's a leading man, and you're gonna just pay us our money because Dwayne Johnson's cool and he punches people and look at his muscles. If anything, I think Jason Statham is the bigger standout between the two actors because his persona is more along the lines of what the filmmakers are trying to go for in terms of playing up the joke or the memes that surround that particular person. You look at Jason Statham and you think, oh, he's that British guy who's in a lot of cool action movies and he's very witty and quippy and insults people. This movie does well to play up those jokes and those memes to where it's funny and entertaining. I had a lot more fun watching Jason Statham grill Dwayne Johnson than vice versa, and his role works really well in the movie, and so does Vanessa Kirby's as well. Even though I don't really know if her talent is used to the best it possibly can be in this movie, at least she does more here than in a Mission Impossible Fallout, where she was just there as kind of like a decoy character and someone who is there to support the main characters in that story. Here she has a much more active role in terms of her physicality and the things that she does in the narrative. It was also fun to see Idris Elba on the screen as well. Any character that he plays where you can tell he's just loving the fact that he's playing a capital V villain is entertaining to me, and the way that they play up his character is frankly ridiculous, but Idris Elba found a way in order to make it work at least marginally to where you can enjoy seeing Idris Elba pop up on screen and fight Dwayne Johnson and Jason Statham. Then of course people will be wondering how the action works in this movie, and for the most part it's fine. There aren't a lot of memorable set pieces per se, but I think director David Leitch definitely knows what he's doing with stunt work, and at least being able to capture action on screen without having to do an over-reliance on CGI, shaky cam, or quick cuts in order to make it work. There are less frequent edits in his action movies, although I will say that towards the end there were fight scenes that were a bit too frenetic with their handheld work, and it made me feel a little bit dizzy, especially in the final confrontation between Idris Elba's character's henchmen and then the Samoans that were teased in the trailer as well. Speaking of which, if you thought the fight between the Ewoks and the Empire was unbelievable in Return of the Jedi, then you've got another thing coming, man. Hobbs Shaw is otherwise a very forgettable movie with a generic plot that doesn't really do anything interesting with its characters or story. It's just a movie that's meant to please Universal Studios stockholders, and I don't think anyone's going to remember that within a couple months or so. With that, I am giving Hobbs Shaw a C. As far as an age recommendation goes, one thing I can definitely praise this movie for is not sexualizing women as much as in previous Fast and Furious movies. Sure, there are sequences in the beginning where there are very apparent close-up of female bodies, especially on the backside, but that's very minimal in the movie overall, and even especially with Vanessa Kirby's involvement in the movie, it don't play her up as a sexualized character. Language can be a problem for some filmgoers though, because there are a few uses of the F word and then of course many other insults thrown out the screen as well. And then for the violence, it's practically bloodless. There are some moments that might make viewers queasy, but for the most part it's just gunfire and explosions and fisticuffs without any of the real gore or intensity that's involved with that. Because of those things as a whole, I would say the Hobbs & Shaw is okay for anyone who is at least 11 years old. Thank you so much for watching this review of Hobbs & Shaw, guys. I have some more videos planned, hopefully in the next week or so. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe. It really does help me grow my content here. And you can also check out my social media pages that are linked in the description below to find content that you wouldn't otherwise find here on YouTube. In the end, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you all have a good one.